Hello, my name is Jessica Lynn Johnson, and welcome to Soaring Solo's monthly vlog on the NohoArts website. And today we're going to be talking about busting the myths about solo theater. There's a lot of myths out there, which can be really discouraging for solo artists, but also for audience members who have a certain preconceived notion about solo theater that can really do some harm all the way around. So today I'm hoping to bust some of those myths and have a really open and frank conversation about some of those things. So first I want to start with a quote by Emma Ham that reads, "Most things are myths, but there's a shred of truth in every story." So as a solo theater director, I have heard so many myths about solo theater over the years, and that's why today's blog and unpacking these things and acknowledging the truth, the shred of truth, if we can find it in these myths, is really important so we can set the record straight. So we're going to dig into 10 common myths. The first myth that we're going to take a look at is solo shows are narcissistic. Yes, it is true. There is a shred of truth that there are some solo artists out there who have a tendency to navel gaze and make it all about them and really not consider the audience's experience with their solo shows. But I find that the majority of solo artists who are out there really aim to be vulnerable when they share their truth from stage, and that their primary motivation tends to be wanting to change or improve the world around them, and at the very least improve themselves so they contribute to the world in a positive way. And if you're concerned about falling into the trap of narcissism or navel gazing as a solo artist, then I would encourage you to look for the universal themes within your show. How can you make your show accessible to an audience member if even if they don't relate to your specific storyline? Ask yourself what your show contributes to the world. And it can be the tiniest contribution. For example, you just might be writing a really funny, light piece of solo theater that brings a lot of levity, and that has tremendous value. Sometimes people have really stressful or traumatic, dramatic lives, and they just need to escape their reality for an hour and go laugh and experience something else to change their chemistry and feel different emotionally. And that's a gift, that's an offering. But you can also educate people about topics that need more illumination while entertaining them at the same time. You can make people feel less alone by sharing sharing honestly on stage. Those of you who maybe be in 12 step or you may be in support groups, you know that when you go around the room and people share their honest experiences in a support group, that it makes you feel less alone. It makes you feel less crazy for your human experience when you can see that other people are going through that. And then if the end of your solo show has a optimistic or positive, triumphant, hope-giving ending, that might help someone get through the day, get up the next day and face this world that is full of hardship. So that's a big contribution. So those are some ways that we can bust the myth that all solo shows are narcissistic. Myth number two, solo shows do not have any technical needs or design. Yes, again, it is true that some solo artists really try and keep it easy, especially if they're wanting to tour the world in a major way. They might have hardly any technical needs, hardly any props, hardly any set pieces, and keep it super, super simple. Lights up, lights down, with a stool in the middle of the stage or something like that. But many solo artists are kind of following in the footsteps of people like Sarah Jones or John Leguizamo, who do have beautiful technical design, who do take advantage of what you can do these days with programs like QLab or really elaborate lighting grids. So as a solo artist, I would encourage you to consider having different versions of your show. Maybe you do have a low tech, no tech type of version of your show, and you also have the bells and whistles version of your show and different gradations in between. When I work with clients, we adapt the show based on the opportunity in front of them if it's something that my client wants to pursue. We might dial it back with the technical needs, or we might go, we're in really capable hands. Why don't we really ask for what we envision and see how close we can get to the vision being realized? So, yes, technical contributions to a show range with solo theater, and just because it's a one person play does not mean it has to just be lights up and lights down. You can really think big about what you want your technical design to be. I've even had solo shows where half the tech is voiceover or video or projections complementing every single page of narrative. So there's a lot of different things you can do. Don't limit yourself. That is a total myth that they have to have no technical needs and be super simple. Myth number 3, solo shows are always autobiographical. A lot of times when we think about solo theater, we think it's telling our own story from stage. It's a living memoir on stage, and that is the case a lot of the time. But I don't want you to limit yourself in thinking that's the only thing that a solo show can be. I have a client who has done, I think she's working on her 5th solo show now, 4 of which are biographical about historic figures, women in history. You can also create fantasy characters. My solo show Z was a blend of autobiography, research, and fantasy, and it just was therefore a fictional piece of theater. So you can have all sorts of different styles of solo shows. You can play celebrities, historical figures, fictional characters that come out of your imagination, real characters from your life, and any mixture of those things. I always like to say it's inspired by real events in those cases where you are infusing some of your life and maybe research you've done, but ultimately you're taking fictitious liberties. Then you want to just say it's inspired by real events. But it certainly does not have to be autobiographical. That is a myth. Myth number 4, it is impressive to be the writer, performer, director, producer, and so on and so forth of your solo show. Some people think, oh, wow, it looks so impressive that my name is in every single category of the creative team. No, not true, not true. And yes, there's a shred of truth in the sense that I do see that on postcards sometimes and flyers for solo shows. And for me as a theater professional, if I see that, I'm seeing red flags and I'm taking a big step back, because what that tells me is there's probably a control issue and a lack of trust. There is not a lot of delegation happening. And nobody, I'm sorry, nobody can wear all of the hats at the same time with excellence. It's just not possible. So as a solo artist, pick which lanes you want to be in and then figure out where you want to delegate so that you can focus on the things that are the most important, like writing and being on stage and performing and sharing your story. Maybe you have someone else head up your marketing, or somebody else do your graphics and doing your publicity or your press. You definitely need a director or a coach or a dramaturg or those sorts of things. Having outside eyes and ears on your show is so important. We can be really myopic if we just are doing everything ourselves in tunnel vision. We're gonna have blind spots. You know, when I was working on my second solo show, because I come from a spiritual background, I was using vernacular that the people in my solo theater group and my teacher didn't know what the words meant that I was saying. Had I not had that feedback from them, telling me what vernacular I was using that was foreign to their ears, I would have gotten up on stage and confused the heck out of my audience. So it was really important for me to have those outside eyes and ears to weigh in and say, could you explain that? Could you go a little further? Same thing comes with something we might think is super fascinating, might be super boring to our audience, or the reversal can be true. You might think something's super boring and everybody's like, no, I want to hear more about that. That's really intriguing. So again, it's so important to have a creative team. Do not try and do it all yourself. So that's myth number 4. Myth number 5, you have to have experienced major trauma such as cancer, rape, bigotry, or something like that to create a powerful solo show. No, that is not the case. And don't let that be an excuse for you to not do your solo show. If you're sitting there going, well, I've lived a pretty good life. I had a pretty good childhood. I don't really have, these big dramatic stories to tell. So my show's probably going to suck. That's not true at all. Like I said earlier, sometimes having a comedic show or just a slice of life, hope-giving show, something that people can escape in and lose themselves in and have a good time and feel good, a sweet message, something funny, or something topical. Those types of things can be a real gift. To your audience and also to yourself. You deserve to be seen, to share a point of view. And there's a lot of people out there in the world who are like you, who maybe haven't had those big traumatic things happen in their life yet, or hopefully ever. And they need theater too, and they want to commiserate and be on the same page as someone who has lived a similar experience to them too. There's room for all of us. There's no one way to do a solo show. So, with that said, certainly solo shows that do talk about really traumatic things, so long as it's not therapy on stage, which we're going to get into in a second, so long as it is healed or in at least deeply supported in the process of healing, traumatic topics can be extremely profound pieces of solo theater, but that doesn't mean that every show has to roll out that way. Which brings us to myth number 6. Solo shows are therapy on stage. So yes, there's truth in that. There are many solo shows out there where people have not done the healing work. They're not supporting themselves in the creative process. They might think something is healed and then they start writing about it and they fall apart. They treat the audience like their therapist. That is very true, but it is not always the case. And there's many ways that you can avoid falling into the trap of having therapy on stage. So first of all, you want to make sure that you are supporting yourself. So we were just talking about having a creative team. Part of your creative team can also be a support group, 12-step, a therapist, a yoga teacher, yoga class, meditation, prayer, whatever it is that grounds you and helps you feel supported, and having friends and a support system to lift you up. Fellow solo artists who also understand how unique and challenging this work is, but also how rewarding it is. That's why Heather and I teach group classes, because we know community is so important when you're on the solo theater journey. Do not try and go it alone. With all of that in mind, those are things that you can do to set yourself up to have support. So when you're on stage, you've been fully supported in the process, so you can get up on stage and be in a healthy space. You also want to be writing from a scar rather than an open bleeding wound. Or I shouldn't say writing. You can write from the open bleeding wound, but by the time you're getting on stage, you should be performing a script that is coming from a place of a scar, meaning we're not trying to pretend that the painful, traumatic thing didn't happen to us. We're not trying to pretend that it's all roses and sunshine and unicorns now. We're acknowledging that deep pain happened, but we're able to talk about it in a way that doesn't re-traumatize us and doesn't traumatize our audience and make them unwilling participants. And just something while we're on the topic, trigger warnings are very important. Make sure that if you're doing sexually explicit things or lots of cussing or talking about just anything that you think might trigger someone, it's really important to put trigger warnings, trigger content warnings on your marketing materials. Because it's not going to do you any favors to have audience members come to your show who are going to be triggered and upset and might walk out, or might be really harmed by the content in your show because they weren't prepared for it. And if other people see the trigger content and they know that they're ready to walk into a show that deals with that, you know that they're going to go on that journey with you and be of sound mind, heart, spirit to be able to go on that journey with you. So that's a little bit about therapy on stage and how we can avoid that. Myth number 7, solo shows are just like stand-up comedy or storytelling. Again, is there truth in that? Is there some stand-up quality or some storytelling qualities within solo theater? Absolutely, but they are different genres. I work with a lot of stand-up comedians who want to create a solo show, and one of the gifts of solo theater is you don't have to have a punchline every 2 seconds and make people laugh constantly. You can take them to dramatic places. You can have them think deeply as audience members. You can explore things from your life that were not funny and you're not trying to get a laugh from. Although you can use levity and use comedy throughout your show, That's not the goal. We're not just trying to make people laugh the entire time. And storytelling, while it is a wonderful genre, it is a different genre. So, yes, we are often storytelling, but in solo theater, a lot of times people will play characters. They'll have dialogues between characters. There's lots of multimedia sometimes in solo shows. So, those are the things that make it a play and theatrical and different from stand-up comedy and storytelling. And also, at least when I coach with people, we're looking at playwriting structure. We really want it to be a play, and to follow really strong structure, which a lot of times with stand up, it can kind of meander, or just have different talking points that don't necessarily have to be in a cohesive theme. Storytelling might might follow some structure, but it is a different structure than playwriting. So those are some things to consider with myth number 7. Myth number 8: you cannot make money doing a solo show. That is a myth. Yes, it can be very difficult, especially in the beginning, to make money as a solo theater artist. And a lot of it in the beginning is investing. You're investing in yourself. You're investing in your marketing materials. You're investing in your director and your creative team. You're investing in renting theaters and paying a publicist, or whatever the things are that you decide to invest in. So in the beginning, you're making an investment. But ultimately, if you think creatively and you really get into the spirit of how is my show contributing, then you can look into grants that might support the message that you're trying to get out into the world. You can look up sponsors who are like-minded and would want to get behind your product. You can create workshops, TED Talks, keynote speeches, all sorts of things that can complement your solo show so that you can go on the road with it and be at theaters, be at festivals, or even get into the college circuit. The college circuit also has a lot of artists that will perform shows, teach workshops, work with the students, and come in as entertainment or educational guests with, an edutainment style to it. So there's different ways of making money as a solo artist. And you just need to think outside of the box and not have scarcity mindset, but have abundance mindset, and also know that first you have to spend money to make money. So that's some feedback for myth number 8. Myth number 9: it's hard to get an audience for a solo show. So again, is there truth in that? Sure. There's one of you. You're not in a um, ensemble with a whole cast of people going out there inviting their friends and family. So you are at a disadvantage in that sense. However, some ways to work against and around having a low turnout for your audience is to not start marketing a week or two before your solo show. No, that's you want to include your audience in the entire process. Honestly, from the seed of an idea, you can start posting on social media about the issue that you care about or about the topics in your solo show and relate it back to your show. Hey, I think I'm thinking of doing a show about this, or hey, I'm in a writing class. Here's a snapshot of the classroom that I was in. Or when you go and tour theaters, maybe you take a short video and you put that on your social media and say you're looking at venues. Include your audience in every step along the way, and don't be shy. That you can't be shy as a solo artist. You might be totally out of your comfort zone to talk about what you're doing and to share it, but you have to. If you want butts in seats, that's what you have to do, and fake it till you make it. It's going to feel potentially uncomfortable in the beginning, but it will be so worth it when you finally have a show that you're proud of and you have people in the theater enjoying it with you. You can also hire a publicist, someone to help get press and get reviews and word of mouth out there beyond what you can do. And you can also ask your friends and family to spread the word. There's so many different things that you can do, but just start early and do it often. Okay, and our final myth that we're going to look at today is you have to be an actor and a writer to do a good solo show. No, you do not. Does it help to be an actor and writer? Sure, sometimes that can be really helpful. But solo theater, the what I love about it, why I fell in love with it and dedicate my whole life and what I do for a living to solo theater is because it's about authenticity. It is about unique, authentic expression. So you're going to create a show that only you could create. And I've worked with dancers and singers and painters and all sorts of different cancer survivors, moms, people who don't fit the typical role of actor, writer, but end up creating compelling solo theater because they have a really important message to get out there. And because they're not an actor and a writer, they have a really unique way that they want to get that message out and tell their story from stage. So you definitely do not need to be an actor or a writer to create a good solo show, but you still need support, just like an actor writer would need support. You still need a coach, you still need a director. And by bringing people onto your team who can help uplift you in the places of weakness and help really champion you and your strengths, that's how you're going to come up with a not just a good solo show, but a great solo show. So that's it for today. I could go on and on and on. There are so many myths and misconceptions about solo theater out there, but that's enough to get us started for today and give you something to chew on. And hopefully it helps shift some things in your mind, some misunderstandings you might be holding on to. Thank you so much. And be sure to visit me at soaringSoloStudios.com. Thanks, everyone.